It is my pleasure to be here today. Thanks for Bpifrance for organizing such an amazing event. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the digital asset space, where we are today, what's next. All right, let's step back a little bit and a little bit of my story. I think went into the crypto rabbit hole almost a decade ago. And I remember it like it was yesterday, the first time I read the Bitcoin white paper. I was astonished. The technology was amazing, it was simple, it was clean. But the game theory that made everything work on the blockchain was fascinating. And I was like, there is something there. I need to go learn more, meet people. And in 2017, I took the leap. Like we say at crypto.com, fortune favors the brave. I made my first investment in digital asset. And back in the days, the space was around $250 billion of market cap. And I thought I was late already. Bitcoin was created already 8-9 years. I'm like, oh my God, I still need to go, but I feel I'm late. Look where we are today. Our industry is about $4 trillion as market cap in terms of assets, and half of it being Bitcoin. For sure, it hasn't been a straight line. There's been many ups and downs, but also amazing people and a crazy pace of innovation. Is this the end? Of course not. We do see massive space for growth in our industry. In particular, we see institutions, financial institutions, thinking of the blockchain as the infrastructure for finance and wanting to move traditional assets to the blockchain. If you look at the reports from SEB, BCG, and a lot of great firms, they're estimating that within the next 10 years, there will be $20 to $30 trillion of assets on the blockchain. That looks like a lot, but if you look at gold, for example, it's already about $30 trillion of value. So I think we can get there. And I've been going to many conferences over the years, and I always said, crypto is a nascent asset class. I think it's still true by certain standards, but I think we've gone a long way since I joined the space. And I hope you'll be able to appreciate why today. Crypto movement started with people, individuals, wanted to have more control over their money. So it has been driven by retail in the early days. The last 2 years, we'll talk about it, there was a big shift towards institutional flow, but the roots are retail. And if you look at the adoption of the space, and we compare it to the curve on the internet, it's been even faster. So today, we have about 10% of the population that has our own cryptocurrency or exposure to the space. And maybe I'll do a quick round of show of hands here. Who has digital assets today? Okay, I think we have a stronger representation here compared to the general population. But I think we're starting to get mainstream. We're not ubiquitous as a technology, but we're getting to the mainstream level. And that has been driven by strong use cases for customers and retail, right? The first one that I talked about before is Bitcoin. Having an asset that is akin to digital gold, a store of value, that has a fixed supply compared to fiat money that since 1971 has been printed to infinity. And it's transparent, and you can move globally over the internet. Super strong value proposition. That's probably half of the growth of the space coming from Bitcoin. Then came smart contract. It's great to be able to move value over the internet, but you can now program that value, money. And you can start having any type of financial services available freely, whether it's trading, spot, derivative, whether it's remittances, whether it's lending, borrowing, all available directly to anyone. And then new use cases have emerged the last year or so, where we see adoptions, especially on the retail side, like prediction market and also tokenized stock, where people can participate and hedge their risk against economic events. So there's many other use cases, but those are the main ones that we've seen that helped really drive the space forward. So let's talk about these assets from traditional world that are moving on-chain. I think the first and the most successful case is tokenizing fiat money. So today we have about $300 billion of fiat money, primarily dollar, that has been tokenized and lives on-chain. I think since, if you look at H1 2025, there's been about almost $9 trillion of volume on stablecoin, on-chain. So it's massive industry already. But there's more assets coming on-chain. Money market funds, private credit, and as I mentioned, tokenized securities are just emerging. For now, only 30 billion, but will grow massively in the coming years. The space is not only about retail, it's also now about major financial institutions and corporations participating into the industry, offering services to their customers directly. If we look on the TradFi side, BlackRock in particular has launched major products we'll see, whether they are tokenized money market funds like BUIDL, which we now support on our platform as a collateral for people to trade, or ETF, and we'll see the impact of that on Bitcoin and Ethereum. If we look at fintech players like PayPal and Stripe, even Shopify on the commerce front, they've integrated payments and stablecoin into the core of their business and has tremendous impact. Visa is the first one, I think, in the traditional network space that started to play with stablecoins and realized that this will be part of their economy and their ecosystem. I remember in 2021, we did the first transfer between company in stablecoin, between Visa and ourselves. We were a big card provider, and if you're in the card business, you always have to settle your balances with the network. And now with stablecoin, we can do it 24/7. We don't need to keep so much float over there. So it was a big improvement. We piloted it. Now it's one of the biggest programs for Visa. They have 150 partners using stablecoins for settlement. And then large corporations that have integrated payments or have started to put digital assets in their treasury. Take Tesla as an example. If I was looking at the price today, over $1 billion of Bitcoin sits on their balance sheet. So really starting to see institutions and corporations participating in the space. Public instruments coming to the space have completely changed the game. The main one that really created this new flow of institutions is the Bitcoin ETF. It was launched in January 2024. And if we step back a little bit, this is the most successful ETF, all asset class combined. It reached $70 billion in AUM, 5 times faster than the second best ETF, which was the gold ETF. Most successful product that has been launched in the FTS space. Today it's about $130 billion of AUM, and I think by the end of the year we'll have probably around $1 trillion of volume just on the Bitcoin ETF. So very successful and bringing a lot of new institutional flow to the space. Another innovation that came, especially the last 2 years, is what we call digital asset treasury. So publicly listed company that decide to raise money and invest and buy digital assets and then use them for yield, options, and other sources of revenue. This really exploded the last 2 years. I think about 200 companies were created with different strategy, initially on Bitcoin, but then on Ethereum and other assets. MicroStrategy, or now Strategy, is the most famous and the largest one. It has a massive impact on the space. You can see, just looking at the DATs, the digital asset treasury on Bitcoin, they already have brought more than 5% and bought more than 5% of the supply. So massive inflows coming to our industry. The trend is coming down a little bit. It's softening. I do expect quite a few companies to fail, some consolidation to happen, but it's here to stay. All right, so how do we go from mainstream to ubiquity, right? There's a few things I think that will help continue and unlock the growth in our industry. This can be a bit counterintuitive as a crypto native to talk about TradFi integration, but I do believe large players, financial institutions, banks integrating this technology will increase distribution massively. The network and the connection that these companies have built over decades is very hard to replicate. And the education that they will bring to the space and to users is going to be extremely positive for the space. So we're working with all of them so they can provide those services and provide this education to their consumers. The second one applies to any industry, is having clear regulatory framework. And I have to say, in our industry, we have had that now in most countries, Singapore being one of the first pioneers in this space. The elephant in the room was the US. We didn't have any clear regulatory framework. We could use old frameworks like MTLs, broker-dealers, etc. But there was no clarity whether this was okay or not. And you saw over the last few years a lot of enforcement because there was no clarity. With the new administration, this is changing. The first legislation that has passed the Senate, the Genius Act, has been a strong signal for anyone in the US and all the large players to go and start investing into the space, because now we have clarity. So we were already there, I would say, rest of the world, and we're getting there in the number one economy in the world, the US. On-chain innovation remains key. I talked about the fast pace of innovation that happens on-chain. We need to keep that alive. We can't regulate it to death. We need that space for builders, entrepreneurs to create new services, program new ways of managing money, and continue to regulate the interfaces where the companies that are connecting with the traditional worlds are bringing money in and out. And I think that's still the right path forward. And of course, continue to have use cases that make sense. Going forward, I think a lot of the blockchain technology will be at the back. People will not even see that they're using it. They'll just see faster transaction, cheaper transaction, more global, cross-border. And I think it will just happen over time. We're here in Singapore, so I wanted to share a few words also about what's happening in Southeast Asia. I mentioned Singapore and MAS as being the pioneer to put a regulatory framework in the country for digital asset, and something that was fit for purpose and that was adapted to the time, mostly focused in the early days into AML and technology risk, and then evolving it with more consumer protection, market integrity rules, and doing it with a dialogue with the industry association and directly with companies. So it's been a benchmark in terms of how to get into the space, regulate it, but doing it pragmatically with the industry over time. But other markets have not stopped. And there's massive growth we see in countries like Indonesia or Vietnam. And if we look at the regulatory framework, they're quite different across the region. Some focus on retail, some focus on institutions. There's still a lot of harmonization that could be done, simplification, and there's still a lot of growth coming, especially in the emerging markets. Here in Singapore, we have probably the first bank that has offered digital asset services to their customers, which is DBS, full-fledged. It was quite remarkable, and it has a strong presence and a strong signal also to the market, but also other players like Grab or Maybank that has offered services or NFT or Web3 tools for their customers. And the stablecoin in the region have been strong, especially the Sing dollar one, and there's a few initiatives to have also other local currency stablecoins grow. I think it's great for countries and economies if they're able to scale the stablecoin usage for their own currency. It helps with government debt. It helps support the strength of the currency. In the US, you can see that there's a massive push to do so, and they see the value to help the currency become international and more heavily used. All right, so to conclude, I would say one thing is certain, is that this industry is not only here to stay, it is the future of finance. Most assets over time will live and move on-chain. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's secure. And it will continue to improve people's life here in the region and across the globe. Thank you.